1-0 is a bit boring, but at least Hansi Flick rotated the squad aplenty and gave us something to talk about. Ansu Fati, Hector, the gang was all here for 90 minutes of Barca shooting and missing practice against Mallorca. Welcome to episode 682 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and thank you so much to everybody who joined me on bigup.com/the Barca pod for the watch along for this one. I will have the watch along. I want everybody here to join me for free as a member on Big Up. Get in that chat. Again, it's free to join. So that will be on Saturday in the Copa del Rey final for Barcelona's first big trophy, if you want to call it that, of the Spanish Super Cup of the season. Again, in El Clasico against Real Madrid. So please join me on Big Up for that one. And in the meantime, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I have another full podcast coming out previewing both Real Madrid and Inter Milan with one of our old friends. So that is coming out later in the week. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment so as many people can see it as possible, or even give it a share on the podcast apps in audio form or on video, or support me on Patreon where I have these shows without the ads. All right, without further ado, no more plugs. Let's get into the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 1-0 win over Mallorca. Headline 1 is new faces, same Flick. So obviously the starting lineup came out, and for what was a midweek game that I feel like with everything coming up for Barcelona fans, including some beautiful weather here in the United States, I feel like people didn't really have their full attention on this kind of game. But remember, these games and 3 points all count the same. And Hansi Flick, maybe he forgot that with his starting lineup, but I guess not, because he also had a plan. There was no Koundé, which was the most shocking thing, because that dude starts and plays every single minute under Hansi Flick. No De Jong, no Cubarsí, no Rafinha, and Lewandowski and Balde were injured. So that's your permanent marker starters not playing for Barcelona, and then Olmo back as a starter over Fermin Lopez. That meant Eric Garcia was at right back, Hector at left back, and Ansu Fati at left wing. Mallorca were also missing a ton of their players due to muscle injuries. Looking at the 2 benches, they barely had enough players without dipping into their academy for players that don't really play for them. So for 7th in the table, you commend what Mallorca are doing. And even against Barcelona, from the opening whistle, they had a plan. And if you're a team in a Liga who doesn't have to play other European competitions, stick to who you are and get the most out of the team you have. And a credit to Mallorca, because at 7th place in the table right now, going at least into this weekend, they are that team who can make the most of what they have. And they started this early, as I said, especially on the counter, victimizing Hector on that left side for Barca, right side for Mallorca. And Tech was forced to make a save early in the contest. Good to see that Szczesny was ready to go and had his focus from the opening whistle. In the 8th minute, I really like what I saw when Eric Garcia lofted the ball over to Lamine Yamal in what was probably offside, but I like this anyway, because yes, Eric Garcia is a different profile than Jules Koundé, and he can get forward, and yes, he did for Girona last season, but that's not really his profile. He's different than Jules Koundé, and I thought that meant that Hansi Flick would have to do a few different things. But in fact, and I'm about to share on the tactics board, that wasn't necessarily the case. Okay, so I want to remind you, if you are watching on YouTube, that Torre is Torres for this instance. That's just the way the cookie crumbles when it comes to the names, but everyone else is correct. Now, why this 11 is a little bit different than the ones we've seen. My idea was that Eric Garcia was going to be a bit more stay-at-home, and that meant that if he wanted to get forward, Gavi would have to come in between the 2 center backs, which happened more as the second half went on. But believe it or not, Eric Garcia got forward more than I thought in this contest. The difference was, though, that Hector as opposed to Gerard Martin, Hector positioning was way out to the left, which had Ansu Fati being asked and tasked to do the same thing that Rafinha does. Look for those runs in behind, but also check to the center of the field and check to the ball quite a bit. So believe it or not, I know it seems like, oh, this is a lineup and a lot of rotation and everything. Torres also came in a lot, and with Mallorca playing that 5-3-2 in the game for so much of it, I was kind of anticipating that Barcelona were going to need to overload the midfield to have any control of the match, and they did. And the stats really do help Barcelona. So believe it or not, yes, Eric Garcia at right back. What a weird little experiment that is. But actually, not really. He played almost the exact same role that Koundé plays. And remember, he also played at right back for Girona to really good effect last season. And I said, Hector we'll talk about how he's a different profile than Gerard Martin, but he provided width, and he has a bit of ability to get forward with some more, let's say, dribbling prowess than Gerard Martin, which does allow Ansu, once Fort gets to a certain position, Ansu knows he has to defend in that space. And then I thought Gabi, and we'll talk about De Jong when he comes in, but then it's also Gabi's job to get over there and defend to the left as well. So that's what we saw tactically, even though, again, names are different, but the system, the Hansi Flick thing, it's all still very much the same. So yeah, there's slight tweaks, but as far as like for like personnel, this was similar to what Hansi Flick wants to do with his best 11. So maybe not the Gerard Martin Balde thing, it's a little bit different, but best 11 wise, now just downgrade kind of all those different positions in different ways. And that's the 11 that you had, which means for Barcelona, the ideas and the principles were exactly the same. And that's kind of what I felt like. This was Hansi Flick's Barcelona. The only thing they couldn't do throughout this match, and I know this kind of sums up all the 5 headlines very quickly, the one thing they didn't do is they didn't finish. First 10 minutes, Lamine Yamal in particular could not find his scoring boots. 12th minute, Pedri disguised a ball in. Beautiful from Pedri. And from that, Barca get 2 more looks at it that they can't find the back of the net for. Other side, 19th minute, Mallorca showing you their only game plan. It's Szczesny again coming to the rescue, probably his hardest and best save of the match, where he has to go down again on a low and hard cross. So Szczesny, when he was needed to, deserved his clean sheet today because he controlled his box, came out when he needed to, and his timing, unlike on the weekend, his timing was perfect. And while detractors will say that Fort did leave a bit of space in behind, especially in that first half, that's how Mallorca kept going against him, well, that's by design as well. And he's a pretty good athlete that can make up the space. Defensively, he's not as sound as Balde. But the other big thing to note is why we probably don't see Fort on that side more often and why Hansi Flick goes to Gerard Martin more regularly. It's because Hector Fort is defending on his wrong foot, that being his right foot. And you could see that on a number of times today. The stats didn't really love his game. The advanced metrics says that on the ball, he did just fine. But in terms of the crossing, even his dribbling, and the defending, none of that was really there. But the eye test tells us something different. Structurally, we know why he was on the field. And I would much rather prefer to see him at right back next time than have to play on that opposite foot at left back. If anything, having watched this match, Hector Fort wasn't too poor to swap out with Gerard Martin. But I can't say after this match I feel any stronger about Hector Fort taking any time away from Gerard Martin, especially on the weekend in Copa del Rey final against Real Madrid. I would start Gerard Martin for that one. I know people have their frustrations with him, but Hector Fort, it's not even about him, the player. It's just an 18-year-old playing out of position. You could see that he was trying to favor that right foot a bit too much, playing out of position. But that's not a knock on him overall in this match. I still thought Hector Fort, again, the 0, you see Szczesny, Araujo, and Iker Martinez, Eric Garcia, they get credit for it. So does that midfield of Gavi and Pedri, and Hector Fort at left back also gets his credit for getting the clean sheet today. Headline 2 is Ansu Fati certified fresh. I didn't give you the numbers for Hector Fort because they weren't kind to him, so I'm definitely not going to do that for Ansu Fati either. The numbers don't really love his appearance today, but we saw what we saw. We saw the eye test, and maybe it's a little bit of the heart also kind of seeing what I want to see, but you know me, when the stats support my argument, and I know I could be a hypocrite here, but when the stats support my argument, then yes, I'm going to use them. So I'm not using the stats for Ansu, but I'm telling you, we all saw what we saw, and it was Ansu who was playing with a lot more confidence than we thought he should be playing with. He didn't score, but yeah, neither did the other forwards for Barcelona today. But I thought his first touch was really good. His movement was really good. And what I did see, even coming on late, was Pau Victor. I get why Pau Victor plays, but in training, you see that Ansu should be above Pau Victor on the depth chart. That was clear. Not that it matters that much, because again, you're talking about 100 minutes over the course of the last few months. And it's also weird because I don't think this changes where Ansu fits. If anything, it was a swan song for him to be in front of that Barcelona crowd and get the ovation and showcase for him the love that people around the club still have for him and kind of remind him of that. Maybe it is confidence for him to galvanize him. But what I will say is, in a vacuum, against Mallorca for 90 minutes, that's a player that I would love to come off the bench again for Barcelona if Lewandowski winds up missing now a week or two. It could be less than that, but if you need somebody, Ansu Fati, break glass in case of emergency, it was just fine. Yeah, I would have loved to see him score a goal, but that's a ton of pressure. There should be pressure on all the forwards to score. Yes, I get that, but I liked all the little things he did. He did look like Ansu today, and for somebody that has been in his corner and wants him to succeed as bad as I do, just looking like Ansu Fati, man, I will take that any day of the week. 26-minute Lamine Yamal on the other side tries the Trivela. He did this a bunch of times in this game. Not that it was the best idea, but this is the best of it. What a dime of a ball to Olmo at the near post, and the keeper just got a hand on it. 29th minute, Gavi hits the post. It's a lot of pressure from Barca, and I probably could have, if not talking about Ansu Fati, also said that this headline was just, how is that ball not in the net, or some variation of that. 30th minute, again, just a minute later, Araujo missed a wide open net. This was the best chance to make this game, at that point, 1-0, but 2-0 if you're going to have scored 2. It's a wide open net. From the corner, Lamine's shot is saved by the keeper, but Araujo can't finish. And yeah, that's when you got to finish if you're Araujo. But hey, good to see him in that spot. Mallorca too, by the way, not to take anything away from Araujo on his set pieces, but they were not defending Araujo at the back post. That was just something that they committed to not doing. They were doing zonal marking on the corners. And if anything, Barcelona had poor corners today. because they probably should have got one on a set piece. Mallorca looked completely out of sorts in that category. 31st minute, Eric Garcia makes the overlapping run, something he didn't do often, but it worked well when he did. Pedri threads the needle, saved by the keeper, and Olmo doesn't miss by much on the rebound either. 38th minute, Ansu has one. It goes a bit wide, but it did feel like in that first half, everybody got their chance for Barcelona, but they just couldn't break through. Headline 3 is fluid football. I wasn't worried. I've been telling you over and over again, whether it's Celta de Vigo in a remontada, whether it's Europe, I'll tell you when to panic. And I'm not going to panic. I didn't panic in that game. Yeah, it's 1-0. It's 3 points, so I don't panic. The football was just fine. The ball just didn't go in the back of the net, which could have changed at any moment. 41st minute, more chances for Barca. Mallorca were blocking shots for fun in this game. They had 14 blocked shots, and 45 clearances in the game. Mallorca had a plan, as I said, and you don't like it. Doesn't have to be pretty, but they had a plan, and they almost got 1 point out of this. I don't think they were close to getting the 3 points, but they almost got 1 point out of this. The only thing I will say about those blocked shots, sure, Ansu was pressing a little bit. Sure, Ferran Torres might have been pressing a little bit. But Lamine Yamal in particular, when it comes to the shooting, when it comes to when he has the ball in a 1v1 situation, there are moments, like we'll talk about with the goal, where he does exactly the right thing. He makes the football play, and Barcelona is the better team for it. But are there times with Lamine Yamal in a game like this where it's rotation around him and he knows he's a starter? Do you feel like he's trying to do a bit too much? Do you feel like he's pushing a little bit too hard? That's a question that I'll talk about on the podcast. But first, I want to hear from you in the comments or on social media, and maybe you can sway me in either direction. 44th minute, Pedri dances through a number of Mallorca defenders. He was up to it on the day. People gave him shouts for man of the match. Fine by me. It's Pedri. I love it. Totally fine with that. And then Ansu, unfortunately, goes a little bit wide on that shot. But at that time, it was 25-0 on shots. Yes, we know that Mallorca had some better chances that Szczesny cut out on the crosses, but there was a scare on the other side. Matteo Mori, not off by much, the former Barca Academy player. He scores it, and he was offside, but Ford almost kept him onside. Now we jump ahead to the second half and right into the second half. In the 46th minute, Barcelona get the one goal they need. It's Olmo who scores it, and it's actually pretty simple here. Barcelona with a lot of pressure. There must have been a little bit of tweaks made in the rest defense from Hansi Flick. I thought they were winning the second balls to at least some good effect, and they were putting a lot of pressure on Mallorca, where you did feel like it was a matter of time. So I didn't actually have time to even see the little slight tweaks that Hansi Flick might have made at halftime that made all this happen. Maybe it was just the talent on the field. That's totally possible. There were a lot of bodies for Barcelona in and around the box. So the ball goes out wide to Lamine Yamal, and for some reason, Mallorca had just one defender on him. They don't bring the second on this occasion. So that meant that there was no second defender to then peel off quickly for Eric Garcia, so if he makes an overlapping run. You always want to be worried about Lamine Yamal cutting inside, and it's probably what Mallorca talked about at halftime, but you've also got to make sure you protect your end line, which they didn't do, because then Eric Garcia gets forward a little bit, and he didn't even have to get to the end line. He's able to square that ball into Dani Olmo, who still had some work to do, takes his 2 touches, puts that ball in the back of the net. Good stuff from Olmo, who is probably, I don't know, Lamine Yamal and Pedri have good arguments, but you let me know again who of Olmo, Pedri, and Lamine Yamal, who is the best of that trio in tight spaces. Give me your 1, 2, 3. I don't think there are any other options on FC Barcelona. Those are the 3 choices that you have. Headline 4 is professional win. It's not like Barcelona weren't trying to score a second goal. They didn't need one, but they also did, because this game could have quickly on a counter been thrown into complete chaos. Ansu did in the second half before he came off, had a few more chances, had a shot saved by the keeper. Lamine Yamal seemed to also be aiming for the top corner a bit too much. I'd love if he just tries to hit that low and hard, because then you get a rebound. Feel like he always tries to go for the wonder goal. 55th minute, it's a Mallorca free kick. The header goes wide, even if he was onside. So there still were some worrying signs for Barcelona, and they did have to make sure that they close this game out with professionalism and make sure they worked hard for each other to get those 3 points. 62nd minute, Rafinha and Fermin on for Ansu and Olmo. Awesome to see the appreciation that the fans are showing Ansu Fati. We feel it at home. They feel it in the stadium. Barcelona were also sitting on the ball a bit more at that point in the game. This, again, as I said, professional. Just wait it out. Watch that clock go to 90. 77th minute, Pau Victor and Jar Martin on for Fort and for Ferran Torres. And nothing really changed when those two came on. It was very much like for like. 79th minute, Lamine Yamal still finding space. He gets in behind with a wide open net, but too much time on it. The keeper cut down that space. And yeah, Lamine Yamal, maybe next year when he's 18 years old, he'll finish those. I told somebody on the stream, if he can figure out his right foot by the time he's 20 years old, I mean, how awesome would that be? So I'm fine. Again, calm about Lamine Yamal. I'm not worried. Barcelona are in the semifinals of the Champions League, final of Copa del Rey, and winning La Liga. Lamine Yamal is 17 and doesn't have much of a right foot when it comes to shooting. So I'm calm about all those things. 84th minute, Pau Victor also shoots one right at the keeper. Then the 85th, Gerard Martin wins it in the midfield. It takes the deflection, and Rahman still saves it after that. 86th minute, De Jong on for Lamine Yamal to close out the game, which Barcelona and Mallorca still had to do. Mallorca still had to defend late because they were saved by the goalkeeper in this one. I said Pedri might have been the man of the match, but you almost have to give the man of the match to the losing goalkeeper in this contest. Leo Ramon was amazing in this game. Fantastic. He conceded 8 goals in the last 2 matches he played. 3 against Pontevedra and 5 against Barcelona. Those are his last 2 appearances when he played for Mallorca. He hadn't played since January 3rd. So come to this one. That's why they tell goalkeepers, always be ready. So this game alone may have got him a better contract. Mallorca, he probably won't be the starter, so maybe he can be the starter somewhere else next season, and somebody might come for him for just one match. If you show up as a goalkeeper against the big dogs, yes, analytics is getting better and better, and there are scouts who want to make sure they get a bigger sample size in one game, but hey, 90 minutes, that might get that guy a contract. But 90 minutes does also get Hansi Flick 3 more points that they need. Real Madrid have Getafe tomorrow, but at this moment, Real Madrid is back down to 7 points adrift of Barcelona. Barcelona also deserved to win this match. I know we talk about deserving and undeserving, whatever. It was 1-0, but Barca had 40 shots and 78 possession. I'll say it again. 40 shots and 78% possession. They dominated Mallorca. They deserved the 3 points, regardless of how it happened. And the fact they were able to rotate and rest the way they did, that's awesome for Hansi Flick. Double thumbs up going into the Copa del Rey final, where Real Madrid will also have one less day of rest with Getafe. So yeah, Getafe, get after it tomorrow against Madrid. Kick them a little bit. You know you like to do that, Getafe. Don't worry about that. And then Barcelona have 5 more Liga matches. So again, Real Madrid is down 7 points to Barcelona with just 5 Liga games remaining. And yeah, it's a difficult schedule for Barcelona, but as I said, I'm calm, especially if Getafe take points off Real Madrid tomorrow. And then headline 5 is 1 win away from 1 win away. Yes, we still had one more headline to go because it's a 1-0 against Mallorca. And there are certainly fun things to talk about from the men's first team game, but it was the women who are the story to talk about this week because they are 1 win away from the Champions League final again. The Femení went out and took care of business at home against Chelsea 4-1 in the way that you want them to do it. They were great when they needed to be. Yeah, I think they could have actually played better. Defensively, there were some moments, but they were the better team on the front foot, creating the better chances. Pajor and Paredes, the goal scorers alongside Claudia Pina, who had a brace. And how fortunate, I said it before, how awesome is it to be able to bring Claudia Pina, who even in 90 minutes, there doesn't seem to be enough time for her to get all her energy out. The amount of passion that she has when she enters the field, to bring her on as a sub and try to bottle all that passion in for a substitute appearance, good luck to the opposition. That's all I'll say when Claudia Pina comes on the field. And to reiterate, Barcelona did deserve to win this game. They were the better team, and now they're just 1 game away from the final, where they'll meet either Arsenal or Lyon. And Lyon is up 2-1 after their first leg matchup with Arsenal. So that would be another historic rematch. Barcelona against Lyon. Are we destined to see it again? Well, only the second leg against Chelsea and Arsenal will have that to tell. Well, again, for the first team, I will be back on Saturday. Copa del Rey final against Real Madrid. I'll start it a little bit early to do pregame and all that stuff. We'll break it down. It'll be quite exciting. So share that is happening. Join me on bigup.com/the Barcelona pod. Or, of course, subscribe, like, comment, anywhere, social media. I always post that I'm doing the streams as the game is getting started, so you won't miss that either, as well as the 5 headlines and all the fun stuff, including the podcast I have coming out in a few short hours. So do enjoy all of that. And as always, until next time, Barca.